Hello everyone, it's DuckFairy07. Today we are playing Zoo Scam again, and this deck has been really amazing. I played like 5 or 6 leagues and I got 4-4-1s, being like really close to the trophy in all the leagues I played. And yeah, so unfortunately didn't get it, but I think the deck is like really strong. I think this list is probably among 10 best decks in modern at the moment. And okay, so I done some significant changes to the list for this new video. Okay, so previously there was a lot of these low to the ground decks with cheap spells like Hardened Scales was a big deal. Also Hammer Time fell off in the meantime significantly. Affinity and all those type of decks like Shadow decks and decks that play 1 mana spells really fell off in the format because of the Beanstalk decks mostly and the scam. So I decided to remove Hidetsugu Consumes All to the sideboard. It was initially really good. It destroys those food decks too, which were popular back then. And it was really good then in the main, but I think now the meta game has shifted to the point where I really want to have something else, and I really wanted to have 8 removals plus fury in the main. So I had 4 bolts, 4 bindings and furies initially, but I decided to switch Hidetsugu's for Terminate to keep up with the black and red card count, and this way I was able to bring in 2 Ragavans in the main, 2 in the side. The reason why I did this split was because in the scam matchup, which is the most common at the moment on MTGO, I anyway always board out 2 Ragavans. Against Yawgmoth matchup, which is also very common at the moment, I also always board out 2 Ragavans. So against most mono black coffers too, that is also a very popular deck at the moment. All of these matchups I board out 2 Ragavans. So that is altogether like 13 to 40% of the meta game, and in all those matches I board out 2 Ragavans. So I opted to have 2 of them in the main and 2 of them with in the side, and do split with the bolt, and I'm very happy with this. I think having access to bolt in the main is also important. Bolt can help you finish a lot of games. You don't have other ways to do so, and that's it. So I think I also did 1-4-1 with the variant when I've played the 5 mana Omnat as just a card that can be used to pitch Fury and Grief too, and can also trigger the Beanstalk, and in the grindy games can generate a card value without actually drawing a card, so not working for the opponent's Bowmasters. It was decent, I can't say anything against it, but it was nothing spectacular, and I think this option works better for me, and I'm happier with this one. Okay, so also Ragavan in the scam mirror, and I noticed so far deck doesn't really have any any really bad matchups, but has some even matchups. Like maybe the hardest matchups I encountered so far are mono black coffers and scam mirrors. Of course, in the scam mirrors, whoever plays first or whoever has Leyline of the Void will be in a significant advantage. And mono black has been good because it's good against all versions of Zoo, and it's also good against scam. So because they just have so much removal, and they get to recover because of that removal from a turn 1 scam very often, and can also deal very efficiently with the Territorial Kavu and even with Scion of Draco because of the Shielded Edicts. Okay, so that is it. Everything else is the same as before, and definitely my favorite list at the moment. Okay, so no stubborn denials on the side. I think the meta game has switched to the point where I really want to have a Lavinia Azorius Renegade. As you could see in one of my previous videos, this card absolutely can destroy the Cascade Beans deck. and it's also very useful against other 4-color Omnat piles, where it prevents opponent from casting Binding, pitch casting their elementals. It's just overall very good card that can also hate the Cascade matchups, and yeah, I really like it at the moment. Okay, so we have Lavinia plus Unmoored Ego as a way to deal with Cascade decks, and also have Hidetsugu Consumes All for the Rhino matchup. Have two Ragavans also on the sideboard, which we always bring in all the Cascade matchups, like Living End Rhinos, for example, but a lot of other matchups where Ragavan is good. Another removal which triggers the beans at just a single Shriekmaw. I think Shriekmaw is best option as additional removal on the sideboard, because we are playing 6 Undying spells in our deck, and this is creature we can evoke for 2 mana and then scam it, and then do basically the same effect as a Fury for 3 mana without losing additional card from our hand. This can be very powerful against a lot of fair decks like Timur, Tempo, Murktide decks, Jund decks where you kill Tarmogoyfs, you can kill a Fury with it. It has a lot of targets and lot of uses. Okay, so that is it, and it's also great against Rhinos. I often bring it against Rhinos. You can use it you can scam it for 2 mana, play the Undying spell and get rid of the Rhinos opponent played, and they really depend on those. So yeah, I think Shriekmaw has been very good, and Leyline of the Void is still my favorite graveyard hate for this list, partially for being black, it pitches to grief, partially to needing Leyline for the scam mirror matchups, which are the easiest ways to lose a game if you're playing against scam on the draw. And yeah, that's it. Okay, so that is it. We can go now to the league and see how it went. Okay, I played 4-4-1 leagues with this list, and deck felt amazing in all of them, and we are going to go through one of those and see how it went. Opponent starts off with Preordain. I have a turn 1 Fury available, and I also have a turn 2 another Fury Scam available, so yeah, this is pretty brutal. So I go for a Fury Scam on turn 1. This is very fast clock. Opponent only has Shielded Edict in these colors to deal with this, but they're playing the, what is it called? Okay, I did the mistake here. Yeah, this costed me the game. I actually lost this one, which was pretty incredible. Seems pretty incredible at this point. But yeah, I have played the Grief, and I discarded Sleight of Hand. My opponent had a Profane Tutor. Okay, so I needed to discard a Spoils of Vault here, and I would win if I just discarded the Spoils. But yeah, I gave, by discarding Sleight of Hand, leaving them with 2 spoils, I gave them the option to try to get a solution here. So they went for first spoils, and finding their Angel's Grace and not dying, that was incredible. But they find the Angel's Grace to survive on 1 life, and on their turn they had another spoils to combo off with Grace and Thassa's Oracle. Yeah, so they top decked, plus me helping them, but by not discarding the spoils. If I left them with Sleight of Hand, they would not have enough mana to dig for all the pieces needed, and I would win. Okay, yeah, so that was a misplay from my side, and I lost the game. I should have won easily. Okay, so in the game 2, keeping pretty good hand, I would say. Definitely want to board in my Ragavans in matchups like this one. This is where Ragavan really shines. They don't absolutely have any way to deal with it, and I don't need my Beanstalks at all. I don't need the Bowmasters, so I definitely want to get rid of those. Also, Hidetsugus are completely useless. Furies are also useless, but at least you can scam it on turn 1 to have a large threat. And so I went for Grief there. taking their preordain, and they didn't have much, but they had Lotus Bloom and Profane Tutor on suspend, which is a lot. This meant that they can go. I had a Tear Asunder to kill, but they had both of these spells on suspend, so they were able to go for ad nauseum instant speed in their upkeep, surviving on 1 life and hoping to find enough of the combo pieces to survive another turn. They had Angel's Grace to survive this turn, and so they get to untap. And yeah. If I had a way, yeah, maybe I could have killed them. Did I have a way to kill? Yeah, I could kill my own Fury and then trigger my Wicked Aura and kill my own Fury and deal them 1 last damage. But they had Angel's Grace, so they would still not die, right? Yeah, but that is a trick you could sometimes use. Okay, so that is it. Opponent didn't have a way to win, and that was it. Let's check out game 3. As I said, Beanstalks and the Bowmasters and the Terminates all useless in this matchup, don't need any of those. I had a good hand, so Unmoored Ego immediately wins me the game in this matchup. It's exactly where you want it. In this type of matchups, combo decks, Unmoored Ego shines. And I wanted to jam Lavinia, but I wanted to play Scion of Draco first, so they can't get rid of Lavinia. Lavinia hates on their Profane Tutor, hates on their Lotus Bloom, they can't resolve it. Scion of Draco giving it Hexproof and Vigilance. This means I have a 2-turn clock here, and opponent can't resolve their Profane Tutors. So they go for Spoils of Vault here, actually finding what they need, but they lost just enough life for me to finish them off with Lightning Bolt, so that was the match. Yeah. Okay, that was a win in match 1. Let's check out match 2. Okay, so in the match 2 playing second, I had to mulligan this one and kept a decent 6. Yeah, so when I have option to go for Fury Scam into blind in a situation like this, I usually do this. And yeah, so 4/4 double strike on turn 1, it's often worth risking, but especially if you have the Beanstalk in hand. If I don't have Beanstalk in hand, maybe I would not do this, but I know I have Beanstalk in hand, and this means even if my opponent has a good solution for my Fury, I still will probably be able to rebuild this very efficiently. And yeah, I was right, so opponent goes for a Brazen Borrower and then for Rhinos, and I was able to play Fury there, kill both of their Rhinos, get another Fury double strike, 4/4 on the field, and yeah. So I was now back into this game, but opponent had a Fury of their own, so I decided to trade with this Charles, and yeah. So I pitch cast my Fury to get rid of their Fury, drawing a card in the process, getting the land I wanted, and now I'm also able to cast my Grief, seeing their hand. I decided to discard the Lorien Revealed, so leaving a Fire Ice and Force of Negation in their hand. So they were able to kill my Grief, and they only had a Force of Negation Mystery card right now. Mystery card was dismembered, so I discard the Force of Negation, and we are now both on 0 cards, totally in top deck mode, but I am in top deck mode with Beanstalk on the field, so in considerable advantage, but my opponent has insane luck and top decks 2 violent outbursts in a row, and I was not able to get out of that, so they cast their first outburst and then immediately on their draw step they top deck another violent outburst, and that was the game. Okay, so opponent got really lucky there with the draws, so we had to solve this in game 2 and 3. Okay, so this is definitely matchup where you want Ragavan, and yeah, in situations like this, turn 1 Ragavan into turn 2 Unmoored Ego is often enough to immediately win you the game. I also had Grief to make sure to discard the Force if they have it in their hand. Okay, so I named Crashing Footfalls and removed all Footfalls from their deck. So now I was able to continue connecting with Ragavan, playing more of my spells. I decided to play their Shardless. Shardless got me the Beanstalk, which was pretty good, and I decided to pitch cast Grief immediately, again looking at their hand, taking Murktide this time. So now they had double Shardless plus Fury. Shardless not getting them anything because Fury Rhinos are out of the deck. Yeah, so just a 3 mana 2/2 to try to block Ragavan, but I have removal to connect again, and I decide to cast their Flame of Fener, drawing me 2 cards. The best thing they can have right now is like either hard cast the Fury they have in hand, or just pitch cast Fury to kill both of my creatures, but that doesn't even matter because I have a Territorial Kavu and Lavinia for a follow-up, and that is the game. So let's check out game 3. Okay, so the sideboarding plan, Bowmasters, as we already saw in with other zoo decks, Bowmaster is terrible into the Rhinos, so always want to board out those. Trimming on Undying spells in this matchup, I think that is common with a lot of scam decks. Bolts are also useless. Terminates are not useless, but I have a lot of better spells like Hidetsugus, like Unmoored Egos, Lavinias. Yeah, all these cards are pretty good, so I wanted to make room for those. Okay, and the Shriekmaw also can be great. When you scam, you can with a scam spell you can kill both of their Rhinos and not even losing a card from your hand. Okay, so I went for Blood Crypt there, casting Hidetsugu and pitch casting the Grief, seeing just a couple of lands in their hand. I was on 10 life, but hoping to recover here with my Scion, so I cast a Scion holding Not Dead After All to protect it from the removal spells, especially Fury. And when Hidetsugu flips, Hidetsugu has a lifelink and a first strike, so it can be pretty good. So on my turn I cast Up the Beanstalk, I attack with Scion and put Ragavan on the field. Ragavan has first strike, so Ragavan and Hidetsugu very efficient blockers and attackers at the moment. So I'm now able to start attacking, also gaining life with the Hidetsugu. Got this member to kill the Shardless, and even if my opponent gets the Rhino spell, at the moment I'm in a pretty good position. They play Murktide Regent there, but that wasn't enough, and Murktide was just a 4/4, so that was the match. Okay, so that was match 2. Let's check out match 3. Okay, so playing first a pretty good hand. I have turn 2 Scion into turn 3 Scion, potentially followed by Scamming Fury on the same turn. That can be great, and this is obviously Hardened Scales, and in comparison, Hardened Scales is usually a bad matchup for a black-red scam, but for this version of Scales is actually not a bad matchup, because this deck has access to Scion of Draco plus Leyline Binding, and these 8 cards make a complete and huge difference in this matchup. Also, I have access to a better artifact enchantment hate on the sideboard. We have 2 Tear Asunders, which are great, and also Hidetsugus, and also Leyline of the Void. All these cards are like very good against them, and it makes this matchup from being bad with usual black-red scam into being very good, because Leyline Binding is a huge difference, and yeah, it just deals easily with stuff like 11-11 Patchwork Automaton, which is usually impossible, almost impossible for very hard for usual versions to do. I can also just deal with the Shadow Spear and Ozolith and Hardened Scales itself, and yeah, that's it. That is the win in game 1. Let's check out the game 2. Okay, I started off with the Leyline of the Void on the field, and that hates all of their modular spells. Bowmasters are terrible into the Hardened Scales. Ragavan is not good either, and I trimmed a single Undying spell to make room for the sideboard cards, and the sideboard cards are pretty good against them. So yeah, okay, so went for Scion of Draco again, and Scion is pretty good. They have a very hard time blocking Scion, and Scion just creates a tempo here which they have a very hard time dealing with. I decide to go for the Beanstalk there to start generating a card draw from the next turn, also holding Undying spell to protect my Scion if needed. I go for a Fury Scam here, clear their board, and put a huge creature on the field with Undying Evil. Yeah, so now I can also cast another Scion to get another draw, and this is a lot of damage. So I can now attack for 4. I'm holding Not Dead After All to protect my creature. I have blockers, and I have potentially lethal for the next turn, and opponent concedes, and that is the game. Okay, and the match, of course. Okay, so let's check out match 4. Okay, so in the match 4, again, I would say pretty good hand. I don't have a scam available, but this is great hand. Like, I have 2 Bowmasters, the Beanstalk, and the Binding. This hand does everything. So you can beat any deck with this type of hand. Opponent goes for a Wrenn 6. I decide to go for the beans immediately, hoping to get a red card, and I did get it to immediately kill the Wrenn 6, get the redraw. So yeah, opponent plays the fairy, bounces my Beanstalk. I don't mind that. I kind of have a Bowmaster here in a perfect situation, just killing the fairy, jamming the Bowmaster. They have to deal with the Bowmaster, or they can very quickly lose to it. So I get my other black source, I get the forest and play the grief. See my opponent hand, which is very good, and I got rid of one of the omnats, but the opponent, their hand was very good. They had Solitude and another omnat, They were obviously holding Solitude here. Yeah, so they went for the Solitude in response to my Beanstalk taking Grief. That was totally fine. I had option to go for... I attacked first with Orc Army token. In case they block, I can just gem my second Bowmaster. And yeah, but I went for Scion of Draco here. Getting the redraw from the Beanstalk, drawing another Beanstalk. So I was holding Binding for their turn. I was expecting them to go for the Omnat, and on Omnat ATB I use my Binding so they can't get the mana from Omnat ability. Getting the redraw of also, and yeah, getting the Bowmaster ping. Opponent plays Valakut, so obviously this was Valakut version, playing Scapeshift. I had multiple options here. I decided to start a turn with the Beanstalk, then go for the Scion, drawing 2 cards, and then Binding, drawing more cards to get rid of the Solitude, and then I find enough black cards to scam my Grief, taking the Walkie from their hand. So at this point they have nothing, but of course they can maybe top deck spell to kill me with Scapeshift. So I attack, gaining 3 life here, putting my opponent to lethal. Next turn opponent tries to find something, but yeah, that was it. Let's check out the game 2. Okay, so this is a kind of mediocre hand. Very depending on my draws. I have to get a red spell to be able to cast Fury, but also like getting Kavu and Scion is good. But I kept getting a Lens, which definitely not good for me right now. I got rid of Vren and 6, but that is definitely not what I would like to be doing right now. Okay, so I didn't board much. I just removed 2 lightning bolts, and that was basically it. Yeah, just 2 lightning bolts for 2 Ragavans in this matchup. That is the entire board. Okay, I find Grief there, and exile the Leyline, discard the Leyline Binding from their hand. They didn't actually had anything at this point, but they were able to destroy my Beanstalk. I attacked the Fairy and finished off the Fairy with Fury, so I was actually in a pretty good position right now. I had Grief on the field. I know opponent didn't have almost anything, but they went for another Vren to kill my Grief. This was still fine. I had Fury to finish off the Vren, holding Not Dead After All and Leyline Binding for their turn. But yeah, of course, at this point of the game they can top deck Bring to Light for the win, and they had it, and Scapeshift wins them the game. That was it. Let's check out the game 3, the final game of this match. And yeah, so I kept it was not a great hand, but it can very quickly become a very good hand, because I have a Ragavan here. If Ragavan connects, that brings me closer to hard casting Grief early, which can be very good. Also missing just a single scam spell to scam Grief. And yeah, so I go for the Beanstalk. I get another Ragavan and pass the turn holding the Bowmaster. I failed with fetching a bit. I should have holded the Foothills for the last fetch to grab me a breeding pool, but it was fine, not a big problem. I decided to go for Grief Hardcast and see my opponent's hand, which was very good. I got rid of Verdict, but they had a lot of good cards there. So opponent went plus the Fairy, and I attacked the Fairy just with one of my creatures, then playing a Fury, finishing off the Teferi, getting the redraw from the Beanstalk, and of course the most importantly putting the Fury as attacker for the next turn. Opponent didn't get the 5th land they needed for, I guess, for the... I'm not sure if they had another Verdict in the deck, maybe yes, maybe not, but they didn't have a mana for Bring to Light, and that was the match. Okay, so that was it, and now let's check out the only defeat from this league. Yeah, I kept what was a pretty good hand, but I was playing on the draw against mono black, and yeah, in these matches winning the dice roll can be very effective. So I went for turn 1 Ragavan, but opponent has removal for it. It's very sweet for them to get to kill Ragavan, my first Ragavan with March this way. I had options here to go with Territorial Kavu or the Beanstalk, but they very easily deal with Kavu, so I decided to go for Beanstalk first. And yeah, so now I wasn't able, maybe I was able to go for turn 3 Scion here if I got another land. But I went for Kavu here, and opponent finds coffers. So I went for a fetch here, and opponent decides to go for the March in the response, killing my Kavu before I pump it with Domain, of course. So I got my Savai and got the breeding pool from the last land. So now I was able to cast Grief. See my opponent's hand. Yeah, and their hand was pretty good. So 2 Karns and a Sheldred. That was like very good. So I decided to get rid of one of the Karns. I had Binding to deal with Sheldred, and I had Fury to finish off the Karn next turn. Opponent finds a Sundering Titan in their hand, and yeah. Opponent goes for the Bowmaster, probably trying to trade with my Grief, but I decided to prevent them from doing so, and definitely wanted to kill this Karn if possible. And I played another Beanstalk, getting me another Grief. So right now I needed a black spell to discard the Sundering Titan. If I was able to discard to get that black spell, I would definitely win. But unfortunately I got 2 lands from the top, so I wasn't able to pitch cast the Grief there. And my opponent got to cast a Sheldred plus Thoughtseize. I'm now very low on life. I'm on 5, but I have a Grief with a lifelink. Opponent blocks a Grief with both creatures, and this is great news for me because I'm able to deal 1 damage to Sheldred and gain enough life to be able to cast the Fury. So I cast the Fury and kill the Sheldred, and now I'm on 2 life, and opponent can cast the Sundering Titan, but I have Binding to kill it, and I have a lot of damage on the field. Okay, so opponent goes for Sundering Titan. In response I exile it with Binding, so they do the double Titan ability, but I got 10 damage coming to my opponent next turn. This means this is 3 turn clock. and I also have Grief in my hand, which I'm hoping to cast with lands from my hand. Also, um, I was able to fetch once because I was on 2 life, but I was afraid of Bowmasters, so I didn't really want to do it if not absolutely necessary. Okay, so I got the Not Dead After All and the Grief, so I was just missing another black spell to try to go for a Grief scam. Okay, so I pitch cast the Fury here. I see couple coffers in my opponent's hand. Basically, they have nothing and they top deck the only card in their deck which wins them the game. So basically there's almost nothing else they could have done here, but the Sheldred was just the card they needed, and I can't do anything about it. I just die on my draw step, and that is the game. So let's check out the game 2. Pretty incredible top deck from the opponent prevented me from getting the game 1 here. So I think this matchup is maybe the only unfavorable matchup I met through the multiple leagues I played with this deck. I'm not even sure if it's unfavorable, but I did lose to it a couple of times. I also win against it a couple of times. I'm not completely sure, but yeah. Okay, so I had a good hand here, mulligan to 6, but Ragavan into double Kavu. That is decent most of the time. So opponent has Tatsis to get rid of my second Kavu from hand, but I was able to attack with this one, get a redraw, finding a Scion of Draco, putting my opponent on 13, playing Scion. This can be very close to lethal next turn, but opponent has Field of Ruin plus Fatal Push, and I draw another land from the top, yeah, which was very bad news for me. Okay, so I go for a Scion here. Opponent exiles Bowmasters from their hand, goes for a March. I save my Scion from dying, but they gained a lot of life with the March there, 5 life, which was relevant. Okay, and again opponent plays the Sheldred. Sheldred is very good threat. You have to deal with this one quickly. So unfortunately I got the Grief turn too late, and I discarded the Sign in Blood. Sign in Blood was basically a kill for them. So now they only had a March in their hand, which was good because they were able to kill the Grief, which had lifelink there, and they also gained a lot of life. So I played the Fury, attack with Scion. Yeah, this was my only plan. I tried to raise them somehow, tried to top deck something, removal. So I trade with a Sheldred, but opponent has another one which was like pretty good. And yeah, I didn't draw removal for Sheldred, which means they have lethal next turn, and that is it. Okay, so pretty close games, even in that last one, which I lost. Opponent had great luck in game 1, and yeah, finally lost to Sheldred both of these games. Okay, but I think this deck is insanely good. It has a huge number of free wins which end in under 2 minutes total, and yeah, I think I'm very happy with this build at the moment. I think this is the best build, and it took me a while to make this sideboard optimal for current gameplay, and I think it is much easier for players to navigate with this sideboard than it was with the previous one. And yeah, so I think now there are more obvious cards which most players will know when to board them and when to board them in. Yeah, and that's it. Okay, so that is it for today. Thank you for watching again. Friendly reminder to click like, click subscribe, Let me know down below in the comments how do you like these changes in comparison to the last list. And yeah, again, thanks for watching and goodbye.